It's Movie Madness Week, with Attack of the Clones Studio Underdog style. We're kept awake with some Jurassic Park-inspired wristwear, Zenith go for gold with their latest Chronomaster Sport, and Formex go foraging in the glacier for meteorite. All this and much, much more in this episode of the Scottish Watches podcast. Tons of watches, tons of things to chat about. Let's ask Dave how he's getting on.
How's Dave getting on? Dave is getting on actually okay, considering he's a little bit stressed because he's got a long-haul flight tomorrow. And has he packed? No. Has he prepared? Not really. Does he know where his passport is? Yes. So that's actually one thing that's good out of everything so far. But other than that, yes, very good. We've got lots of interesting things to talk about on this episode. Quite a lot of cool little releases coming from, in the main, a lot of the smaller independent brands, to be honest, although there's a couple of the big brands in there as well, just for balance. So we should probably get on with this, Ricky, because there's a lot to cover this week.
Be sure to check the show notes if this is your first time. Play along at home. Miziel, our show notes guru, puts together supplemental data that will showcase, enlighten, fulfill your every want and desire when it comes to wristwatches. That's where all the pictures, the text spec, the links will be. And the link for that will be in the podcast player. It'll also be on the YouTube description if you're watching us at home or on the go. But yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks. We've been trying to piece together what's been going on since we returned from Geneva at Watches and Wonders. We've had the entire gang on the show, some interlopers, some new faces, some old stalwarts of the industry. But we're here to talk about the watches that got away, the new ones, the ones that they held back so they wouldn't fall into the chasm of, well, Watches and Wonders diatribe. And the first thing we're going to chat about is an Attack of the Clones. There's a guy out there who's done really well over the past half decade. He was one of the winners when the pandemic hit. Along with ourselves, we did pretty well. The podcast obviously grew from strength to strength over those years. But there was a guy down south. He didn't really like the camera. He didn't really like the microphone. He was a little bit of a shrinking violet. But he's certainly come into his own, come out of his shell, and he is now commanding the centre stage across the planet when it comes to wristwatches, funky designs, and, as it turns out, turning the table on the cloners. So what's going on and who are we talking about?
We are talking about the one and only Richard Benz from Studio Underdog, someone who has definitely flowered into a somewhat of a character within the watch industry. He has been doing collaborations with lots of brands, and of course he hasn't been forgetting about what started it all. That is Studio Underdog and that very first watch that he released, the chronograph. He's obviously expanded the range over the years since then, but with success what actually happens is that some people maybe get the old jealous features on and they decide that they should just copy the hard work and the homework of the compatriot to try and make a fast buck. And of course, this is always something that happens within the world of successful brands, but Rich took a slightly different approach to it. He could have got all legal, albeit that would have been messy and expensive, no doubt, but he took a bit of a different view, and he thought, well, what I'll do is I'll take your homage and I'll raise it by making an homage of an homage. And of course what he did was he reached out to his vast audience of followers and fans and asked what he should be getting up to in order to push back against these unwarranted attacks on his design language. And he has done a bit of a blinder as far as I'm concerned. Of course, as we've mentioned, copies of popular products, no matter what they are always inevitable, and his approach is the best way to fight the copycat is to copy the copycat.
Is this almost like when Aldi get into a bit of hot water? Here in the UK, obviously, we have a lot of listeners from across the globe. We are international men of misery and mystery. But Aldi is a German brand. They are quite big in the UK, and they have a habit of winding up larger supermarkets and conglomerates by homaging everything. Absolutely everything. And the latest one I saw was a marketing campaign that was a few years old, but only learned about it recently, where they created a line of footwear and sports apparel. And because it's called Aldi and the design they've got has got 3 stripes through their logo, they put onto social media, hey, we've got an idea for the name of this brand because our lawyers have told us not to say it, but if you say it, then that's okay. And then everybody commented and said, Aldi das. So they screen captured that and put it in their adverts because apparently that's legal.
Yes, because you're only echoing what others said, you're not saying it yourself. Yeah, they've got themselves into a bit of bother. Also with Marks and Spencer's, one of the more premium high street purveyors of fine foodstuffs. They've got a famous cake called Colin the Caterpillar, and they may or may not have pretty much ripped it straight off and given it a different name.
Remember, they actually took the image after they got into hot water with that one. They took the image that is extremely famous where it says, you wouldn't steal a car that was then modified to you wouldn't download a car, and it turned into you wouldn't copy a caterpillar cake.
Yes, they are very clever, and their social media is also on fire quite often when they decide to throw things back. But anyway, we're getting distracted. Back to Studio Underdog. So yes, back in early 2024, Rich noticed a watermelon ripoff. Of course, the watermelon being pretty much the first watch that put the brand and himself on the map of watchmaking. But instead, of course, of taking legal action, he thought he would inject some humour and he would recreate the watch in an avocado colour. So what he's done is over the last, I think, round about a year and a half, he's been working in this, and you've now got a couple of new limited editions. You've got the limited edition avocado, and you've got the limited edition guacamole model. I love that word, guacamole. It's a great word. Holy guacamole, Batman. And this is, of course, all in the, good-natured jibbery that goes on. Well, push back hard with something better than the copy of the original, which is already good. Anyway, this is all getting very meta. What can you expect? Of course, a stainless steel case, 38.5mm in diameter, 12.9mm high, 44.5 lug to lug, and that double dome sapphire crystal with 50 metres of water resistance. So far, so good. Everything you would expect from the chronograph within the Studio Underdog range. The avocado, you've got a yellow dial. That big eye 30-minute sub-counter at 3 o'clock is in a kind of brownish colour, almost looking like the stone or the pip of that avocado. And the guacamole dial is light green with the 30-minute counter in a darker green. You've of course got the Seagull movement, the ST1909B hand-wound column wheel chronograph. That's a bit of a mouthful. You can get a lot of features in there, the swan neck regulator. And he doesn't just take these Chinese movements straight off the boat and shove them in a watch. He works with a brand in the UK called Horologium, who do the assembly and regulation of each watch and movement in the UK. Built to an accuracy of around -10 plus 15 seconds, so not quite in cost, but certainly plenty acceptable and better than a few other very large brands out there who do lots of watches in and around the same price point that don't have anything like this accuracy. Runs at 3 Hz, 50 hours of power reserve. And the other big feature here, which is the little well-known but secret, is he works with David Richards, also known as the Strap Tailor, to produce some extremely high quality straps. Italian Epsom calfskin leather. They've got a Haas Zermatt lining in there as well. And considering these watches sell at around £550, 600 euros, 675 US dollars, you're getting a strap that, frankly, is better than watches costing 10 times as much in some cases. As usual with these, we mentioned they're limited edition. How is he doing it? Well, they will go on sale on May the 8th for only 9 hours. That will be between 3 p.m. and midnight British summertime. Not that we ever get our timings wrong, but of course, yes, that's the times. Double check that. 3 p.m. to 12 midnight British summertime. Yes, that's correct. Just make sure the show notes are correct there, Miziel. Nothing after that order window is going to be produced outside of that. So that will be the limited edition. The first 800 pieces will be delivered before the end of May. So the first folk that get in there are going to get their watch pretty quickly. These are great. I think it's an amazingly cool way to deal with this issue. Lean into it as opposed to trying to cause consternation. And to be honest, legal action will only ever make yourself miserable anyway. So yeah, I think they've done a great job here.
Did you say consternation or did you mean constellation? Because you've seen the crazy t-shirty type thing that I've got here that says time and space. We're mixing all your favourite things together, time, space, and a teddy that almost looks like Teddy Ruxpin. And look, this is like massively fluffy and whatnot. Yeah, this was a TK Maxx pickup. Just had to grab it. Actually, Simona got it for me. Got to give her props.
Are you saying that that's what I would look like if I was an astronaut? Is that what we're saying?
Well, I have seen what you look like as a Muppet. And you're generally a Muppet 24/7, so that was extremely meta.
I hate to think what Gav is going to come up with. Gav, oh Gav, please be kind. None of this Teddy Ruxpin nonsense anymore. I know it's going to come. I know whatever you're going to do is going to be brutal.
But the watches, yeah, they're fine. I just love the story. I love the way he thinks. And like you say, he's a little bit like, he's like a Scottish person. He takes a negative and turns it into a positive. And that's what we do in the show. That's what we do with news stories, or if there's something not quite right and we can adapt it, help it, move it along. That's what we try and do behind the scenes. And I'm waiting for the moment where he drops the ball. I'm waiting for the moment when the watermelon style, the Series 1, becomes uncouth, uncool. And it just hasn't happened. He just keeps knocking them out of the park. And moving from R for replica to the big R for Rolex, they have been they've been busy. They've been really busy this year. They've been doing new watches. You might have heard. They kind of took over Watches and Wonders. And I got a call. This is a strange one. I got a call from my local AD where I picked up my Daytona a number of years ago, probably now coming up 3 years. No, I heard a pip from him. And then I got a call today to ask what I'm interested in, to update my wish list, my want list, my waiting list. So I'm wondering what's going on behind the scenes there. And maybe they had heard the episode where I mentioned a sky dweller in my future. Now the house has been bought, the car's been bought, and I'm licking my wounds financially, trying to get back on the old watch collecting circles. But enough of my personal journey with watches and potentially a Rolex in the future. We're going to talk about Rolex have been up to in the present.
Indeed, well, obviously there has been a lot of news covering various tariffs, especially with regards to the United States, and there is news now that Rolex in the USA are going to hike prices by 3% from the 1st of May. The authorised dealer network have also been notified that they're going to have to give up 1% of their margin, taking them down to 33% on every new watch they sell. That is, of course, as long as they sell it at full price. Let's be honest, it's Rolex. They're being sold at full price. There was, of course, a degree of turmoil when the US president announced a 31% tariff on all imports from Switzerland just a few weeks ago. But that has been, well, not rescinded, but it has been put in abeyance for a little while. And of course, though, that does mean, though, that the 10% global tariff is still in effect. So there are definitely additional costs. Throw into that, of course, the markets decided to react, as they do when things change, and the dollar did drop in value against the Swiss franc, which made the Swiss franc very strong. That meant that the kind of general cost of importing the watches from Switzerland to the US have increased by around 25%. And of course, Rolex are not going to take that in the punch gut and take it as a hit on their profit. Add into that as well, gold has also shot up by over 20% since even the start of this year. And during last year, it was increasing pretty much the whole year as well. They already brought some price increases out on their gold watches. Now the rest of the range is going to be joining those price rises as well. Swatch Group, of course, have already raised their prices in the United States in response to the tariff, the gold price, and the Swiss franc's strength. So unfortunately, if you live in the US, all your watchy stuff is about to get a little bit more expensive. But let's see how that pans out and settles down. I think there's still a bit of flux and change to come over the coming months.
As Archie Luxury used to say, probably does still say, because I've not checked out stuff in a while, it's got to hurt. It's got to hurt if you're buying a watch. So it's going to hurt a little bit more. But if the Daytona is maybe not the watch you have got in your future, maybe the Zaytona could be, because they have got the guys over at Zenith, and we're talking about the Chronomaster Sport. They've got a new model out that on first appearances looked a little bit like an Omega. Then I delved a little bit deeper and it started to have its own look and feel. Something the Chronomaster Sport has dipped in and out of. It does look very reminiscent of the Daytona. Obviously back in the day, Zenith movements were used. The El Primero movement was used by Rolex up until maybe 20-ish years ago when they got their in-house stuff moving along. I think it's when they incorporated Eigler into things. But Zenith have got something out that maybe you'll want to pay attention to. Dave, what do you think of this?
Well, what we're talking about? We're talking about the Chronomaster Original Triple Calendar. Now, that watch already exists, but they've decided to go a bit luxe, a bit luxury with this and brought out a rose gold and black variant. So, of course, this is featuring an 18 karat rose gold case and a very nice black dial. I think, frankly, this is a stunner. It's a great looking watch. I can see where Ricky's getting that vibe of Speedmaster in there as well, because of course they've done gold along with that black dial, and it's in a very effective colour palette, I have to say. 2024 they released that model in stainless steel. It's based on, of course, the iconic 1969 A386 design, which has a 38mm case. It's got the box sapphire crystal, you've got the pump style pushers on there and the tapered lugs. The movement, possibly the biggest show in there, your El Primero 3610, an automatic caliber, of course running at 5 Hz because it's the high frequency version. It's a true 1/10 of a second chronograph with that central chronograph hand spinning round the whole dial in just 10 seconds. You've of course also got the triple calendar and the moon phase complication in there. 60 hours of power reserve. You've got that blue column wheel, the open work rotor on there with the Zenith star. Pretty much what you would expect from Zenith, of course. And you've got this beautiful black calfskin leather strap. It's just a really good looking high-end piece. And at 25,400 Swiss francs, it's not inexpensive by any stretch, but considering we're talking gold watch territory here, that caliber. I think this can give the likes of a Daytona easily a run for its money, definitely on the technical terms. Is it got the same cachet as a Rolex in the high street? Of course it doesn't, but if you're looking for something a little bit different, but still definitely classy, this could fit the bill.
Well, the strange thing is, Dave, you'll remember a number of weeks ago, I made a comment when we got back from Watches and Wonders and we were going through the rigmarole of releasing all that information, speaking with all our friends and bringing them onto the show. Zenith were celebrating 160 years, a nice round figure, a 5, a 0. It's the way of things at the moment. And they had these 3 blue watches that they were making a song and dance about. And I really wasn't impressed, and you came on board with that one and said, yeah, it didn't really hit the mark. To me, the blue ones looked a little bit ice watch. They looked very plastic as much as they were ceramic, and kudos for the engineering and the ingenuity that goes behind the material sciences there. But I said, wait, they're going to be doing more stuff. Watches and Wonders is just one part of the year. Wait, I'm sure something else will come down the line. We weren't privy to any information, but if this is a sign of things to come, then I'm looking forward to the rest of the year because this is starting to more align with the kind of thing I like, and the price point is not crazy. For the complications that are inside it, El Primero plus complications, I think it's a bit of a win. And I know the price point of the Daytona is far higher. Even the Omega Speedmasters in their, whatever you would call it, rose gold-esque materials, they're a lot higher because I keep seeing them in Geneva Airport when we're coming back and forward from shows. So this one could be an absolute winner. I'm going to get in touch with the folks at Zenith and see if they can actually send us one if they have a press sample kicking around. It'd be nice to see what it's like on the wrist and do a bit of a comparison to the old Daytona that I used to have. But it's now that time where I don't talk about watches that I had in the past on the wrist. We talk about the present. And because I've got something special here, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, what am I wearing? Well, not wearing, it's lying beside me. That is a Studio Underdog. At the top of the show, we talked about Studio Underdog. And, well, they're a serious brand, doing serious things and seriously run, but doing it with a fun little tweak about it all the time. And, of course, the pizza watch was one of the maddest, weirdest things that you could possibly have imagined anyone doing on a watch, but it worked for them. And they were available all last year. So when I had the opportunity, I picked one up because I'm also a big fan of having pineapple on pizza. I know I said it, the Italians will probably all hate me for it, but yes, that's what I'm wearing. I think it's a cool little watch and I'm happy, so I don't really care what anyone else thinks because watches are about what you like, not what other people like, or at least that's how it should be. Ricky, you've got something special on and I think you're going to show it off, but there's also someone else who's maybe going to give us a little bit of a background to it.
I'm not going to talk too much about my wrist check because this is the point in the show where we're allowed to bring other people on. My job becomes easier and your eardrums get a little bit of a reprieve from the noises created from my vocal cords and my lungs. And yeah, celebrations, 10 years of the limited edition. We've had Pietro on telling you all about it. And instead of him coming on, because he's a busy guy, he's organising this, that and the other, we thought we would actually bring somebody on that has collaborated with him. And we've talked about many times in the past, actually, the brand, although we've never had the gentleman at the helm on before. So let's do my wrist check with a special guest.
Well, my name is Patrik Sjögren. I'm a Swedish watchmaker. My atelier is in Linköping, about 2 hours south of Stockholm. And I've been making my own watches well over 15 years. And GOS is most famous for our work with Damascus steel and the inspiration we take from the Swedish nature and history.
First question, GOS, what does that stand for?
It's the family names from the 2 founders. Myself, I'm the S, Sjögren, and the other guy was one of Sweden's best knife makers, Johan Gustafsson. So the first months we called ourselves Gustafsson and Sjögren, but I quickly realized that Sjögren was impossible to pronounce for anyone else than Scandinavians, maybe Scotsman.
You did well. I like people that think ahead because there's many folks out there. I was actually speaking to another guest that will be on the show momentarily, and I asked him about his company name, and he had to explain about 10 minutes worth of dialogue why he came to where he came to. So GOS, it's easy. Everybody knows it, and it's very simple to pronounce. It's easy to write. Yeah, very simple. Unlike the watches that you produce, because there's nothing simple about your timepieces. It's not just what I used to think, the dial. The dial was the standout part. Obviously, it's the face of the watch. It's the part people look at most. but it's everything around it. And I believe this is the first time that we've actually physically had one in hand in the studio to talk about. And when it arrived, usually I do the whole we do an unboxing live on the show. I couldn't wait. I actually got out my Swiss Army knife. I chopped the plastic off. I cut the box open. I extracted the watch because yesterday in Scotland we had sunlight. I was able to actually explore the depths and the beauty of this dial in natural light, and there is nothing better. LED lights, no chance. Out with ultraviolet, the full array of all that CRI goodness. That's what you need to fully explore this dial and the other watches that you create. But for the listeners that maybe haven't heard of you before, there will be one or two. Do you want to give me the quick 60-second version of GOS and where it came from?
Well, as I said, it started as a collaboration between an ice maker and myself. And I really wanted to make as much as possible myself with a watch. And also I follow the Swedish watchmaker tradition, which is that a watchmaker should be able to do everything in a watch, not just work on the movement. And with my interests in finishing and design, working with every aspect of the watch came natural. And Johan and myself, we shared a lot of passion for Viking artifacts and handcraft. So we dug deep into inspiration, but also really raised the bar for what we wanted to do. And I've continued to raise the bar year by year, which I think you are able to see in the watch on your wrist.
Absolutely, but what's your history then? Where did you come from in watchmaking circles? Did you work for one of the big brands? Is this a sort of pet project you'd always wanted to work on timepieces? Where did you get into all this?
Actually, if you look back to my childhood, it would be natural to become a watchmaker or a mechanic, because my grandfather was a self-taught mechanic, and I spent a lot of time in his workshop. But then, as I grew a bit older in my teens, the computer arrived, and I was one of the early adapters to buy. I bought from my own money a home computer and learned to program. So that got all my attention.
Tell us more about this collaboration. We don't have time in this small insert, but I think we should probably have a chat about bringing you on for a full episode. But in this insert, we're going to talk about your collaboration with Limited Edition, celebrating a decade with Pietro and the team there. And they don't mince their words. They don't just collaborate and do watches with anybody. I'll give an example. A brand spoke to me just a couple of weeks ago and said it would be good if you created an introduction between ourselves and the limited edition. I think we could do something together. And Pietro, with the kindest of words, said no thank you. So he doesn't just jump into bed with everybody that offers. So yeah, you guys are definitely doing something cool. And this cool thing on the wrist, do you want to tell us all about this? The name of it, the specification, the ideas that came behind the scenes?
We started to discuss collaboration. I think half a year, but maybe the sky is the limit was a theme that Pietro brought forward. So that got us thinking to what can we do? We both recalled a watch I had made 6 years ago. I had done some experiments with luminous mother of pearl the year before, introduced two watches, both men and women's watches with luminous mother of pearl dials, one blue and one orange. Quite a lot of attention. I didn't follow up on that. I sold the ones I made, but I still wanted to do something more of this. So I was really glad that to be able to do it with this collaboration piece, also improve it from what I did 5 years ago. In addition, add some of the features I've developed for the last years. For example, those familiar with the Northern Lights watch, Norrsken, might recognize the glass chaptering. For this Sky is the Limit for limited edition, I decided to add enamel to the indexes. So what you see there is matching blue enamel, which is also applied to the perimeter of the glass ring, and that adds a lot of blue to the sapphire ring. And then, of course, the case was significantly improved over a couple of years. And I introduced that for the first time with the Sarek Frost collection. It's 41.5 millimeters in diameter, 11 millimeters thick, and it has manufacturer Lazodre movements. modified for my specification. The strap in this watch is salmon. Some people know that I've used moose leather for quite some time, but I've also started to use salmon lately. The finishing is on the side. You see the fluting on the side of the case. That's something I've had for my watches for almost 10 years. The idea behind that is to imitate or get the expression of Viking bracelets. So I've combined a few design elements from Viking bracelets into the fluting. Again, some Viking inspiration is in the crown, which, if you look at it from the side, the shape that's seen from the side is actually from a Viking sword hilt that we find. And we rotated that hilt, that design, 360 degrees to create that volume. And of course, there has to be some elements of Damascus steel in a US watch. And for this watch, it's in the bezel and the bracelet. So they both have matching stainless Damascus steel. And if you turn it over, you see another customization I did for this model, which is in the rotor. That blue color is not paint, it's actually ceramic that I apply with the same technique that I developed for the Northern Lights collection. So it's nanoceramics that's applied, and I also do the rhodium treatment of the Triskelen logo. The movement is anthracite colored, specifically for JOS by La Chapelle. I also do the engraving and finishing, the complete finishing of the case in my atelier. I'm very happy with the blue color of the rotor. I don't think you can achieve that with paints. Many other coating mechanisms or techniques, but with the semi-transparent ceramics, it's possible to have the metallic luster while having a color as well. I also do the finishing of the buckles. Since a couple of years, I've added chamfer to all the edges. My original finishing was a bit too harsh, so straps wore a bit too fast. But I've improved on that by adding polished chamfers on all the edges.
As you'll have noticed, for the past couple of minutes, I've remained silent because I have nothing to add to the conversation, and I was too busy carefully rotating the watch for the people who'll be watching this episode on YouTube. And this is one of those episodes that the show notes are going to be your friend, and the YouTube video is something you'll want to look at after the fact. So if you're listening to this on a Thursday, around about Saturday, potentially Sunday morning, depending how busy Gav is, the video version of this show will be out. And if you're watching us live on YouTube and you want to see better pictures, click into the show notes. It crosses over. Click into the show notes. That'll take you across to the limited edition website. And in there you'll have the high resolution, plus more of the spec, more of the details, things like that. But tell me now, for the people that are listening, the people that are watching, how many are available? When is it available? When can they be delivered? And what is the price?
Well, what you've seen here is number 1 of 5. So that is readily available if limited edition wants to start from it. But then, as always, I do watches on order. But I've managed to set aside time for this project, so I will be able to do them a bit faster than normal. My normal time to deliver is 6 months. Has been for 2 years, but for the first two, number 2 and 3, there will be approximately 2 to 3 months, and the last two, 4 months.
Well, I suppose the last thing you've not told us, and probably the most key part of the information that I've requested, is the price. How much will it cost for somebody, perhaps myself, perhaps somebody else, if they wanted to get this wristwatch on wrist? How much will it cost them?
Well, these unique pieces will be £60, excluding VAT.
Okay, for a 1 of 5, pretty much unique piece, as you say, because everyone will be slightly different due to the material composition inside. It's insane. I mean, I don't really know why I expected anything not being insane coming from limited edition, because everything they don't just, we say this all the time, they don't just change the bezel colour. They don't just put their logo on the back of it. Everything is thought out. It's almost like an entire new model line. So this one here, check the show notes, check the YouTube video, click across, and if you like what you see, because there's only going to be 5 available, and they will go quick, and there won't be any more. As I mentioned in a previous show, one of the prior limited editions Pietro put together, I had somebody try and buy it off me because I got one. They tried to buy it off me for over retail, and I said no, and that annoyed a lot of people behind the scenes. So if you like it, grab it quick. And I think we will have a chat maybe about bringing you back onto the show, because there's a lot of stories I think that are rolling around in your grey matter, and I want to find out more about how you produce these watches, what it's like over in that neck of the woods, and the amount of watches, or the lack of amount of watches that you actually produce per year, because I know it is literally a handful. But thank you for joining us on the show today, and all the best. As much as I don't need to say it, good luck with the limited edition that you've got out here, and maybe we'll actually catch up later in the year, because I'm going to be coming to a couple of TLE events celebrating a decade in existence with Pietro, Sam and the team. So have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Nice to join you there.
Well, that's always great to hear from Patrick from Goss, a brand that, doesn't get talked about maybe as much as it should do. Again, there's lots of brands out there like that, but yeah, great to hear that. Really cool watch. And of course, with limited edition and their 10th anniversary this year, lots of other things will no doubt be popping up during the year. And I know towards the back end of the year, they're planning a rather large party, something that I'm definitely looking forward to that. So outside of that, Ricky, what else have you been up to?
Well, I'm actually enjoying wearing this little guy, and check the show notes, have a look at the YouTube video, because even in the studio with poor lighting, it's not outside in natural light, we've had a little bit of sunlight in Scotland, and I have been mesmerised by this dial. But other things I've been up to, there was a car event, a free to visit car event. I'm Scottish, I like spending money, did you know that? And I went along to this thing. It's been going for about 10 years. It's more of an open day for a local car sales emporium. And it started off with maybe 20 people getting together with the owner. Now there are hundreds and hundreds of cars turning up. So it's the James Glenn Coffee and Cars morning. I went along to this, cleaned my car, turned up, and was just blown away. McLarens, Ferraris, Noble M12s, vintage Jaguars, Escort Cosworths, 360s, all kinds of stuff was there. So that was an amazing thing that I did just a couple of weeks ago. They're trying to rattle through what's been going on. If you look in the video, you'll see some of the captures that I managed to get with my phone. I didn't really expect it to be like this, so I didn't bring a proper camera with me, but hey, the iPhone's pretty decent in the right hands, not that I have them. And the next thing I did was I went to a horror con, a little bit like a Comic-Con, but more for people that are into vampires, zombies, those kinds of things. That was at the SEC in Glasgow. And there was lots of cool stuff. There was lots of props from movies, Ghostbusters, one of the movies of my childhood. They actually had some screen-used props from the movie there that you could actually have a look at. You couldn't handle most of them, obviously, because they are collector's pieces, but it was just something different. And I mean, if you're into collecting watches, you're already on the geek fringe of the collecting community. So going to a horror convention, not quite too bad. And I think that's probably about it. Formex have been around for a long time, quarter of a century. Raf's been around on the planet a little bit longer than that, but he actually took on the ownership of Formex a number of years ago because it was a brand he liked, but it was a brand that was faltering. He managed to take it under his wing, and utilising information, knowledge and experience gained from his family business, working for other watch manufacturers across Switzerland and the rest of the world, he's managed to turn things around. He's kept the brand structure, he's kept the DNA, you've got the suspension system we've spoken at length about in the past. Our limited edition Sky actually had a very similar type of idea to what we're about to talk about, but again, completely different, all a little bit like Studio Underdog. Every Formex sounds the same until you see it, and then they're all unique. So this one, again, it's a colour that is a little bit reminiscent of my wrist check today, but it's a design, it's something that is completely different.
It is their 25th anniversary, as we mentioned, and they've already released a couple of bangers. Ricky's already mentioned it, but Raphael took on the brand, but their family is, how shall we say, well entrenched in the watch industry. His father has a business that is producing cases and bracelets for some of the most prestigious brands in the industry, and within the Greater family, they also have a factory that are making some of the best dials in the industry as well, based up in the Jura Mountains. As I mentioned earlier, back in New York, a few weeks ago, they released the Essence Ceramica skeletonized watch. That was showcasing their ability to create ceramic cases and bracelets, and we believe believe it has the world's first full ceramic clasp with an integrated extension system. But what are they doing now? We're not talking about what they did do. We're talking about what they did now. They've released 2 variants of this, based, of course, on the Essence in both 39mm and 43mm, the Formex Essence Space Glacier Kosk Automatic, to give it its full name. Now, they've done meteorite dials a couple of times, and this is based on a meteorite dial, but with this one, it's got a coating of 98% pure silver and an ice blue lacquer coating on it as well. Formex's first use of meteorite dials goes back to our limited edition release of 50 pieces, I think in 2020, but last year they also released the Space Gold in a 39mm Essence, that being of course in 2024. Not just a cheap meteorite dial, because they've got that heritage and provenance working with dials. This is a solid 0.5mm thick slice of genuine meteorite. Normally, they take a thin veneer and they put it onto a slice of metal to give it its structure, but in this case, they're actually even soldering the feet directly onto the bottom of the meteorite, doing things properly. So how did they get this colour? Well, most coloured meteorite dials use a PVD treatment to get this kind of colour hue, but what they've done here is a 2-stage finishing process to really get that meteorite's naturally occurring Widdenstrammer pattern showing properly. So you've got an electroplating process that covers the meteorite in a bright layer of 98% pure silver. Then there are 6 layers of a transparent cellulose-based lacquer that are hand applied onto this silver-plated meteorite, which gives it this crisp pale blue colour as well. The dial is absolutely stunning. If you've seen the gold variant they did previously, this one, in my opinion, is even better. It's subtler than the gold, but really brings the dial to life. There's something, Ricky, that I have to bring up though. I like this, but you're always someone that says something. That date disc isn't colour matched. Do you have anything to say on that matter?
I actually hadn't paid that much attention, because when I looked at the dial, I remembered the other models that they'd brought out. I've actually got one myself in the safety deposit box in Glasgow, because I've not extracted it just yet. And that was just a straight meteorite colour, kind of grey, kind of shiny, with those triangular patterns that you get on genuine meteorite. And it's strange to think that brands such as Rolex will load the price so dramatically to have the thinnest sliver of meteorite on a dial, whereas companies like Formex can actually roll these things out for a few $1,000s. So in this case, no, colour match date disc is not a problem for me.
I'm glad you finally actually answered that question. You were very skirting around it, but I agree. I think the fact that the date disc actually
Kilting around it, Dave.
What was that? Kilting around it? Okay, we'll go with kilting. I'll say skirting. Anyway, back to it. The date disc, I think the colour palette on it does match some of the other areas of the watch, such as the appliques and the hands. So I think it balances it out nicely. I'm not as something retentive as you when it comes to colour match date discs, but yes.
No, yours just kind of slops out quite easily. It doesn't retain anything.
It flaps around. But hey, that's one of these things. More about that later. You've also got, of course, their patented case suspension system on there. You've got that internal tub made from grade 2 titanium that holds the movement, and then you've got the sprung system. Now, it was really originally designed to be, I guess, a system that was designed to protect against shocks, but its big advantage and side effect of this is it makes it extremely wearable on the wrist. That certain very thin watch that we've talked about a lot that I like, that I can't wear because I've got a bony bit in my wrist, well, this watch kind of solves it because it lets the watch move and sit comfortably on your wrist. Of course, it's a stainless steel case. You've got the brushed and polished finishes. You've got 100 metres of water resistance. You've got the 2 sizes at 39mm, 10mm thick, 20mm lug width with an overall lug to lug of 45mm. And you've got the larger version in 43mm, which has got a thickness of 10.6mm, not that much thicker, but it's got the wider lug set at 22mm with a lug to lug of 49mm. Movement wise, you've got the chronometer certified version of Sellita's SW200, and of course that's fitted with their custom fabricated skeletonized rotor, 41 hours of power reserve, and individually Kosk certified, which, if anyone knows Kosk, means it's -4 +6 per day accuracy, seconds per day that is. You've also got a couple of options in terms of how you can wear it. You can have a matching stainless steel bracelet with the butterfly style folding clasp, which has got that little micro adjust system in there to give you 4mm of adjustment. You can have a rubber strap, a fabric strap, and of course the important part, the price. If it's on a strap, US wise, $1,870 US, or on the stainless steel bracelet, $1,990. This, in my opinion, is a win.
Agree. And again, maybe keep an eye on those prices with tariff changes and whatnot, depending when you listen to this episode of the podcast. Now, a brand that we have talked about a lot because we stumbled across them last year at Geneva Watch Days is a brand called Awake. They're no newcomers to the industry, they've been around for a while. I think originally from France, but they have just exploded onto the scene. It takes a long time to become an overnight success, people have said in the past, and definitely applies here. We got to have a look through their entire back catalogue over in Geneva last year, and were impressed. Not from the current range they had out and the future releases that they then subsequently dropped on the public, but the initial ones, they kind of hit it straight from the off, which brands don't usually do. Again, Studio Underdog have, but many haven't. And I got a text message when I was over in Geneva with Dave just a few weeks ago saying, I know that you're at Pal Expo, I know you're at Watches and Wonders, but we are literally just around the corner. When people say that, it usually means a taxi ride or an Uber. These guys were out the door, up a staircase, into another door. And we wandered in there because they have got a collaboration watch coming out shortly. We're not allowed to talk about, but we will soon. And then they actually have a couple of watches that are inspired, homaging a great movie that perhaps includes some dinosaurs.
This is a brand that, as Ricky mentions, has been around for quite a while, but they've undergone a bit of a transformation, moving into their second chapter in their existence, moving from what they were doing originally, which was some pretty cool watches, we have to say, into what they're doing now. And in my opinion, they have really moved the bar. The needle has moved right round up to volume 11 with these watches. So Awake have now launched 2 limited edition watches themed around Jurassic period, of course paying homage to that iconic 1993 film Jurassic Park. This is, to quote them, a tribute to the 7th art. It's a métier d'art project celebrating cult films through fine craftsmanship. Now, of course, that Steven Spielberg movie was...
You're like that, the skinny guy with the bald cap. No, and he goes da 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 da.
Yes, of course, that movie by Steven Spielberg was an absolute blockbuster, and I think these 2 models could well be blockbusters in their own right. 2 limited edition models, one called the T-Rex, the other called the Raptors, only 50 pieces of each. They do feature the handcrafted lacquer dials, which are inspired by the eyes of these prehistoric namesakes. The T-Rex has got a fiery orange gradient dial, and it's got a dual claw mark just kind of gouged out of the dial. And of course, you've got those appliques that are very specific to Awake as a brand, where they've managed to have little blocks of luminescent material with the metal applique on top of it. Almost the reverse of what you would expect, but it gives this effect of it looks like the applique is glowing in the bath of luminescence when it gets fully loomed up under the UV light. They're absolutely amazing.
Is the T-Rex one designed for people with small wrists?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few movies about that, you know, small, what is it, short arms, deep pockets, one of those ones. But yes, you've also got an orange marine leather strap on that one, so it's definitely all about the orange. The Raptors version has got this layered greens, and you've got the 3 claw mark, and you've got a matching scaled salmon leather strap on there, which has got that look of that Velociraptor's reptilian gaze, as to put it in their words. I do remember that bit from the film where suddenly that eye just pops up, and there was that moment of, I think we're going to die.
I only actually saw the movie for the first time a couple of years ago. It was one of those classics that passed me by because I just didn't care when it first came out. And I watched it with super high definition television, OLED, all the rest of it. And the effects, considering this was one of the first movies to use computer generated imagery along with T2, it was incredible. It stood up, and I've watched Corridor Crew on YouTube taking it apart frame by frame and showing you what was done. I don't know if it was Jurassic Park 1 or 2, but there's one part where the computers they were using were so stretched to the limits, they actually ran out of memory while they were rendering frames. So there's actually one point where the dinosaur just disappears for a couple of frames and then pops back in again. But you never noticed it because you're watching on a CRT, on a VHS, or in a cinema. using actual 35mm. But anyway, I digress. I like doing that.
You do. The techniques used to make these dials is a Vietnamese technique called Son Mai, and this combines silver leaf with natural pigments and translucent lacquers. You get an amazing effect of kind of depth and reflection to it. The only thing I've really seen come close to it is what you would get when you do Grand Fu or enamel dials. It's got really that kind of amazing effect to it as well. But of course, these are not at the price points you would expect to be paying for a watch with a Grand Fu dial. The other thing, of course, and I have mentioned it, you've got a Wake's Superluminova system where they've got almost a monoblock of lume with the metal applique on top of it. And when it does light up and it starts to lume, it almost looks like that little metal applique is glowing in the darkness. It's absolutely amazing. Check out the show notes to see what it is, because during the day it just looks like a very subtle white edge to the appliques, and then at night they just come alive. 39mm the cases are, 316L stainless steel, and movement wise you've got a La Joux-Perret G101 automatic movement in there, giving you 60 hours of power reserve. You've got the screw down case back, that's got a sapphire glass on it, and you've got the jungle themed engravings. You've got a couple of iconic quotes on there: spared no expense and life finds a way. Also within one of the watches, this is one out of the total of 100, of course split over the two watches, 50 each. There'll be an authentic, here we go Ricky, we've got to get this word right. It's a Carcharodontosaurus tooth. I think that's right. But yes, this is a dinosaur tooth that you get in it. Whoever gets that lucky golden ticket, one of the watches gets it. Price point wise, this is the bit that blew me away when I got the price of these watches. Not just these, but all of their current range of watches. €2,075, excluding taxes, so it will come in around the €2,500 mark. But for what you're getting here, these watches look infinitely more expensive than what you will actually be paying for the watch. Love it, love it, love it. The orange one and the green one, I actually think I like the orange one more. The green though is super cool as well. Ricky, what do you think?
I'd have to go orange for reasons that everyone kind of already knows, I think, having seen pictures on our Instagram of the Christopher Ward. But it's a toss-up between the two and the other range that they've got out, you know, the current models that they have, plus all the ones from the past. Seeing these things in real life is something I would recommend, and it's a good lead-in to remind you of the Glasgow Watch Show that's coming up in about a week's time as we record and put this episode out. And I believe the guys from Awake are coming across. They're also available in Glasgow in Scotland from James Port & Son in the Argyll Arcade. So if you want to see something in real life instead of doing that ordering online blind, then either come to the show or check out James Porter. But I'd say come to the show, because then you'll get to speak to the designers, the creators, not just with Awake, but all the other brands are coming along as well, including Formex, including Studio Underdog. You like how we tied all that together? We might even see somebody else from the UK, because there's another watch that's a collaboration from one of our friends, and I didn't get to meet this guy over in Geneva this time. We usually bump into him, usually in a staircase in Beau Rivage, but we didn't venture forth that far. We were stuck to PAL Expo. But Bamford has done it again.
He has. He's done a collaboration, this time with Rowing Blazers, and we have the Rowing Blazers Bamford Barbar watch. This comes in at £2,400 and this is one of their Bamford GMT models. You've got Barbar on the dial. If you don't know who Barbar is, well, probably go Google it, because it's a pretty old cartoon character. Well, cartoon puppet character, one of those kind of things, but it's definitely brings back a few memories for me. The GMT model runs on the Sellita SW330-2 model. It's running with 25 joules at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 56 hours of power reserve, and it's of course in the stainless steel 40mm case. The thing that you will always expect to get from Bamford is a very cool collectible packaging box for it, limited to 99 units. I think this is pretty cool. It does that whole thing where the hands are the arms of Barbar. It's in a cool green colourway. He is very good at doing these slightly left of centre collaborations and bringing back characters that, let's be honest, most folk had completely forgotten about until you suddenly see it and go, oh, I remember that.
I'm waiting for somebody to bring back Pepe Le Pew. Although, due to current political correctness reasons, maybe not. That is the end of a show. We have covered a lot in this episode. Be sure to check the show notes, somewhere we always direct people, because there'll be lots of information in there and details of the Glasgow Watch Show, because that's where you'll get to meet myself, Dave, Sarah, Gav, and the motley crew of Scottish watches and all these brands that we talk about all the time, making the pilgrimage to the heart of Scotland. Not Edinburgh. Not Edinburgh at all. Glasgow, that's where it's at. That's where we and Dave are from.
The real place.
Yeah, that's where Taggart was created. That's where Taggart was from. That's where Still Games from. That's where Tune the Fat's from. That is where you want to be, Glasgow. But that is it. You can go through our back catalogue. We've got tons of great episodes in there in recent times. Dave and myself were chatting to Matthew from UN. He was explaining how they created a world record-breaking watch, the lightest dive watch around. 50 grams or less for the watch head, just slightly over, including the strap. Then we had Mike France, CEO of Christopher Ward, on all about the Loco, something that's taken the world by storm. And Miziel took the world by storm with that one, a little bit early, but hey, we still don't break embargoes. We can't say the same for Miziel. But that's pretty much it, Dave, unless you get anything else you want to add.
Nope, I think other than that, just check out, of course, the back catalogue. Plenty of interesting episodes in there. And we've got some exciting stuff coming in the coming week. And we've got some exciting episodes coming up. Other shows that we also did some recording with at Watches and Wonders will hopefully make the airings in the next week or two.
And that is it. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.